Hello, everybody. My name is Sue Petruzza, and today's presentation is on the integration of the Laudato Si in a hybrid virtual stream lessons. Welcome to the NCEA 2021 conference. I am Sue Petruzza, an education specialist for the STEM Centers of South Carolina. In addition to being a Navy veteran, I worked formerly as an assistant principal in Florida. I was at a school in Florida that became the first stream school certified by the Florida Catholic Conference. After my husband's retirement from the military, we moved here to South Carolina, where I continue to work in the STEM field in education. So the STEM Centers of South Carolina are located throughout all of South Carolina. However, this year, because of the last year and a lot of the virtual training, I feel like we have reached teachers and educators in other states as well. So we are located statewide, and there is a list of some of the organizations that we work with. The STEM Center is an initiative of the South Carolina Coalition for Math and Science, which is based out of Clemson University. And there are some of the other initiatives listed there as well. So I'd like to start today's presentation off with a little prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Let us pray. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. I feel like the hardest part of this presentation today was choosing the prayer. And I felt like I chose that one because of the differences that have come up over the past year with COVID-19. And so there are many things that we cannot change. We just have to accept. And that change is very scary for us. And so hopefully, as we continue to get professional development and learn more, we're getting more and more wisdom to be able to make those changes, know when those changes need to be made, and based off our students, what are those changes that are going to benefit our students the most. So in today's presentation, there's a couple of things that are going to be going on. I'm trying to make this as interactive as possible. So there's going to be times that I may be looking at another screen or looking at a timer. So I do apologize in advance if I look like I'm kind of gearing off into a different area. We have a lot of different documents, websites, things that we're going to look at. So all of those resources are going to be provided on this one link. What that's going to look like is this. And so this document will be view only, and that way nobody can go on here and type anything, and even if it was an accident, make any kind of edits that may change a link in any way. So this is going to be view only. However, if you want a copy that you can make yourself some notes on, you are more than welcome to just hit file, make a copy, and it would save a copy for you in your own Google Drive. And that way it can be a document that you can use in the future or make any kind of notations or things like that that you want on it. There are going to be some times when we're looking at some of the links on there, and I may turn the camera off, so just kind of letting you know in advance, but you will hear my voice. So you have two options to access that document. You can click on scan the QR code and get the URL, or I have created a tiny URL that is listed there. And I will pause about a minute to try to make sure that everybody gets access to that document. So for this presentation, you're going to want the ability to move between screens. And dual list is a great way to do that if you do not have two monitors. And the way Duelist works, and it is the first link on your sheet, it's a Google Chrome extension that's free. And so if you were to click on the link, you should come to this page. And here you would say, add it to Chrome. Because mine is already there, it would just say remove. Once it's added, you would go here to your puzzle piece, and you would see where Duelist is. When I open Duelist, I can pick the ratio that I want for my screen. So if you want to have the screen, oops, let me scoot this one over. Where you can see the sheet with the links on one, and then the items that we are discussing on the other, you can do that. I want this to move back over. And so I'm not going to use that right now, so I will go ahead here, put my back to the full screen. Move my Google Meet back to the screen. So that is a way for you to split your screen if you do not have two monitors, in case you want to keep this on one screen and then whatever the links that you click on the other. Oops, I'm going back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Participation is encouraged but not required. So there's going to be some activities that I'm going to ask you to do. And if participating in those activities is just too hard to move between the different screens and to keep track of the presentation, please don't try to stress yourself out over this. But if it's something that comes easy to you and you can go through those different screens all at the same time and you're comfortable doing that, then please participate as much as possible. All of the participation will be on those links, so then afterwards you would still have access to all of those documents where people might share some ideas, and those might be helpful for us after the presentation. So looking at our agenda today, we're going to hit three big areas. And even though it says that these are lessons that can be used in a virtual or hybrid classroom, remember that face-to-face can be kind of included in there as well. Some of the school districts that I've worked with this year may have one or two students that are home in a virtual setting. So they're doing face-to-face with majority of the class, but then somebody gets quarantined and ends up at home. So these are things that you can do in all of these different settings. So let's talk about Laudato Si, and this is a video that is geared towards younger students. Okay, and so that is just one way that you can introduce that to your students, and you may already have other ways that you do, but some of the things they talked about in that video are things that we're going to talk about in this lesson. So in addition to understanding what the Pope asks us to do, for this particular lesson, we're going to also talk about the social Catholic teachings. Some schools that I've worked with incorporate the social Catholic teaching into their stream programs. Some of them do the Beatitudes, others do virtues. So there's sometimes an additional religious element that they bring in to those stream lessons to make sure that that faith base is happening in those lessons. So you'll see that you'll have a link for this website with these posters and some videos that help explain these to your students. And then what we're going to do now as a group for those who can participate is take a little quiz on the social Catholic teaching. So when you click on this start button, it's going to open up a link. Actually, you'll have to click the link on your paper because you won't have access to the start button. But when you click on it, it should give you a blank box for you to enter your name. Then you would go ahead and enter your name and hit start. And then when you start this activity, you're going to look at the definitions and see which social Catholic teaching you think this defines. So we'll look at the world was made by God, so we take care of all creation, and I'm going to click on care for God's creation. So I will give us about 4 minutes to go ahead and complete this activity. And again, the way you would get this activity is by looking at your sheet of resources, and you would click here on Word Wall. Enter your name and start. We have 1 minute left for those of you who are finishing up. And one thing that's good about when you use WordWall in a hybrid or virtual setting, or even face-to-face, is that you have the opportunity to have those game-like templates. And you can see there's a variety of different game-like templates, but then there's also printables. So you can print worksheets. Once you enter your content once, you can also print those worksheets as well. So if you wanted to have worksheets for some students that are in the classroom but have the ability for others to do it online, you can do that using that program. Unfortunately, this is a short presentation, so some of the things that I show you today, I will not be able to actually teach you how to use, but you will have my contact information, and you can always feel free to contact me at any time if you have more questions. So looking at our lesson today, we are going to look at a resource that is for grades pre-K through 12, and you can see here it was produced at the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota. And you will have access to this document. It is on your sheet. And the lesson we're going to look at today is a 3rd grade lesson, and it's called Throwaway Culture. So I wanted to kind of pick something in the middle. I felt like 3rd grade was in the middle. And so when we look at this, we're only going to kind of do day 1 on the outline. This would be found on page 37 of that document if you want to take a look at it. And you could always make things a little bit harder or make things a little bit easier if you're a K2 teacher or a 4th grade up. But I will kind of show you how we took this lesson that was normally done. This document was created in 2015. Way before COVID. So this was a lesson that was normally done in the classroom, but only face-to-face. So we're going to look at it and see how can we still do this in a hybrid setting. Now here we're going to put everything together. So this is Google Classroom, and I'm making the assumption because most schools that I work with are using Google Classroom. So if you were to be using Google Classroom, this is a way you can have all of this stuff accessible together for your students. There will be 6 parts to this lesson. And we're going to go through each of those parts. The other option is I have another example of using blend space. And so we'll talk about these in a minute. So blend space, if you don't use Google Classroom, this is again another way where I can put all of those pieces together in one location so that my students aren't jumping from link to link to link to all over the different place. All of the links are found in one location for the students. Oops, so here on this link sheet, you will see that you have the blend space. If you click on the blend space, it's going to open that lesson up, and there were 6 components to that lesson. If you go to the Google links, I can't share the Google Classroom with you because if you know how Google Classroom works, we have different domains, and so therefore you couldn't join as my students. But what I did was put all these links here for you. So you could just click on the journal entry, the Jamboard, and we're going to go through all of those, and I hope that you're going to participate in those activities as I talk through the presentation. So going back to our slideshow. When you put those documents into Google Classroom, this shows you how I set those up. So that first document, which is the journal entry, was made a copy for each student. Then the Jamboard, each student can edit a file. And then the Google Slides, where we're going to do a drag and drop activity, I made a copy again for each student. And when you do that, it makes it so that they can't all make changes to the master copy. However, because I was not able to give you all your own copy, when we go to do those activities, multiple people will move around on the same slide, and that's okay. And then we have the videos here, the Flipgrid, and the article that the students are going to read without ever having to leave their Google Classroom. All of those links are going to be right there for them to click on. They don't have to try to type URLs or go to other sites to get to these resources right here that we're going to use in this lesson. So let's take a look at this. So going to our Google Classroom links, I'm going to use those. We'll take a look at this journal entry. And so the first part of this lesson asks, what brings you the most happiness? So I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes, and then for 2 minutes you can go ahead and write something on here. The way you would do that is just to click and start to type. If we had students that had maybe kindergartners, first graders that aren't going to be able to type a whole lot, they could do the voice typing. And then when you click here on the microphone, my dog brings me happiness, and it would just write what they were saying. So I'm going to set the timer for about 2 minutes, and let's go ahead and write on this document. And for those of you writing, we have about a minute left. And since this lesson is called Throwaway Culture, we know that it is about waste. The questions are, what is it? How can we prevent it? Why does Pope Francis tell us to change our ways? And so sometimes asking students what brings them the most happiness helps them realize what's important. When I go to the next link, I am going to click on the Jamboard. And a Jamboard is a collaborative tool that students can use to work together. And here we're going to ask, what brings you the most happiness again? But we want to focus on items that are things and items that are not things. And so the way you're going to write on this document is you have a couple options. You can take the text and type here and just type something. You can grab a Post-it note and type my dog. Maybe my dog is something that he's not a thing, right? So I can put him here. And there is a pen feature if you're using, sometimes it's better to use a touch screen because if I try to write, it doesn't always come out so nice. But if you're using a touch screen, then it's very easy for you to do that. So I'll set the timer again for about a minute and let you find a way to add to this document. Here I'm going to grab the pointer again so I can move my note around. So you can do the text or the sticky note. It's probably going to be your best way to do this. And we have about 30 seconds left for those who are participating. Okay, so now that our students have all collaborated together and they have talked about what brings them happiness and what are things and what are not things, we can have a great class discussion around that. And again, if you go back to the lesson, You'll see here where the teachers that created these lessons have some brainstorming ideas, have some discussion question ideas already for you. But for the best interest of time, we're not going to go through all of those discussions right now. The next part of this lesson, we are going to do a drag and drop activity, where students are going to be asked, in the last 24 hours, what items have you thrown away? And this is a drag and drop activity. And then in the Google Classroom, you saw we gave each student their own copy. And in doing that, every student will be able to grab things and drag them over to the box. Now, I'm assuming they didn't throw their that away, so I can move that back over. And then I also put a text box here at the bottom where you could type something else that I didn't put on there. And I'll go ahead and just give us about a minute at most to look at this, because the way we have to do this in this presentation, we all just have this one document to look at and to drag around on. So we'll just kind of share the one document. You each will have your own. The drag and drop activities are really good for our younger students who maybe cannot type out these words. And remember, if you try to use the text-to-speech tool in Google Slides, when you go to the tools and you do the voice, it does write it down here in the speaker notes. Yesterday, I threw away the newspaper. And so if a student couldn't participate, maybe wasn't able to type, they could write their answer here using the microphone. But those tools will have to be taught. You know, the students are just not going to know how to use those microphones without your help. Then they would watch this video on the evolution of mobile phones. And the next thing we would have them do is a Flipgrid activity. And if you click on the link, you'll see that it asks you, make that a little bit bigger to see it. There we go. In 1 minute or less, answer the following questions the best that you can. What are ways you can help the current throwaway culture? And what can you do in your life to help answer Pope Francis's call for change? And the way the students will record is just click here, record a response, and then the responses will come up. I would love to see some of you add a response. So I'll go ahead and set the timer for 1.5 minutes because they max out at 1 minute, and I'll stay quiet so that you don't hear me in your video. So I feel bad if I cut anybody off, but I didn't want to give the 30-second warning and then hear my voice in your video. Hopefully I'll get to see a lot of fun videos that you posted. The next step is the end product for these students, which would be to create a trash to treasure. And here there's an article that they could read on trash to treasure. So when we go back and look at this lesson that is in Google Classroom, we see the different directions. The first step was for the students to make the journal entry. The second was for them to work together in Jamboard. Third, drag and drop. Fourth, evolution of the mobile phone, the Flipgrid activity, and then creating something of their own. When we go back to the lesson here, oops, let me back it up. You see these different parts. Here's where the journal entry is. Here's where the items that make you happy. There's where they can look at things and say, you know, talk about the materials over time. What happens to those phones? What happens to all that stuff? Talks about showing them quotes. So this lesson here that's already created, this virtual hybrid lesson is based off this. And when you go into this document a little bit more, you'll see there are pages and pages of lessons for different age groups. So taking a look at what we just did, we see STREAM, the science. We talked about recycling, the environment. Technology, we talked about typing, dragging and dropping, doing talk to text. Religion, of course that was in there. Engineering is going to be there because we are going to design a trash to art project. Arts, we have our journal entry as well as our trash art. And math, where was math? So how can I incorporate math into this lesson? Although it wasn't there, we could have done many different things. We could have measured things. We could have weighed trash. So there are a couple different options we could have done with math. When it comes to the math section, I feel like find out what objectives you need to meet for math and include those. And looking at the C's, we had communication, definitely had some collaboration, and you could assign this as a group project if you wanted to. Critical thinking, what can I do? What can I do that's gonna make it different? And they would tell us that in their Flipgrid. And then the creativity of making the art project. I'd like to add that fifth C of caring, to put that SEL element in, to see that the earth, and that's the response to the encyclical for us caring. And then our Catholic social teachings. Definitely saw some solidarity in there, so we could all work together. We can all participate in recycling, and we should be taking care of the earth. Don't eat what we don't need. Don't hoard, don't overbuy. And those are ways that we can show our students the Catholic social teaching within this lesson as well. One thing you can do with older students is have them write a faith statement where they include right here in here what the Catholic social teaching is. So they kind of summarize their activity and then add this Catholic social teaching. So the last thing I have on that is a Padlet. So if you have any questions, comments about the presentation, anything that I showed you that maybe you wanted to learn a little bit more about, I can help you out later. My email address is there on the screen, s.petruzza@s2temsc.org, as well as my Twitter handle. So if you click on the Padlet and decide there's something that you would like to add or ask, you can just hit this plus sign and you can ask your question. You don't need an account, you just add your information there. And so I'll keep that up for a second so that in case anybody wants to get that information, and that is, my email address is also on that link sheet for you. Thank you all for attending. Have a wonderful day.